Welcome to Women in Cybersecurity. I'm pleased to be here with Helen Patton. Helen, it's so great to have you. I've been a longtime follower of yours on Twitter.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, for those who don't know, her tag is CISO Helen, and she's definitely one to follow. So I want to start off with how you got into cybersecurity. What got you into this field?
Everything about my career is just a series of accidents and unexpected opportunities. So early 90s was sort of the rise of the personal computer sitting on desktops in offices. And I worked for a consulting company that installed accounting software in small businesses, actually. And in that role, I got to do basic networking. I spent more hours than I want to admit with floppy disks in my hands, inserting, 20 Windows 95 floppy disks into computers. And then I moved from the consulting company to supporting infrastructure for a company. So I ran a help desk. We were running desktop support. We were running network support and basic data center. And it was the end of the 90s. We started to see a lot of worms being introduced, the I love you viruses, the Melissa worms. We were dealing with Y2K. And I was running an infrastructure team for a software development company at the time, reporting to the CIO, and he said, "Oh, we need a disaster recovery plan." And so he asked me to begin a disaster recovery program for this company. And I moved from there to JP Morgan doing disaster recovery business continuity. And as always happens, there was a merger and an acquisition there too. My boss at the time, who was running a security team, left and they offered me his job. So accident to get into IT, accident to get into disaster recovery, and accident to get in security, but really great opportunities, all three.
So tell me a little bit about your studies and education. Does that shape what you do today?
It sure does. So I was never a traditional student. So I was always full-time working adult. Did school part-time for a long time, took me about 15 years to get my undergrad degree, which ended up being in business administration. And then when I became the CISO at The Ohio State University, I had the opportunity to do a master's degree as part of my employee benefits there in public policy with a focus on technology policy.
Can you tell us about kind of when you transitioned to the cybersecurity and when you became CISO at Ohio State? What were your priorities for the CISO role?
OSU at the time had a security team. They had experienced a really big breach in 2010, and I joined in 2013. So they were in the early stages of building a security program. So when I first joined, it was really about evaluating what they had, what they didn't have, but they needed, understanding the risk profile of the organization and what the organization was willing to pay for in terms of security.
And then you moved to a vendor company. So what was it like to move from being a CISO to going to a vendor and as an advisory CISO in that type of role? Tell me about that and that role at Duo.
Can I tell you I'd never worked on the vendor side for security before. It was eye-opening to me in terms of how much technical expertise goes into deciding what needs to be in a security product and what the industry needs and what our customers need.
So now at Cisco, what are your key priorities?
Well, Cisco had purchased Duo when I joined the organization. So I'm still in the same role that I started in. So I've been in role now for about 18 months. So we've got things going on right now around supply chain security. Thank you very much, SolarWinds. Tactically, how do you deal with an SBOM? How do you create one? How do you consume one if you're on the receiving end of one? So right now, priorities around not just supply chain, but how do we improve the community overall? Where does it make sense? It's how can we as a community help little organizations or open source software components that don't have a lot of resources themselves to do security really well.
And so are there any resources that you'd like to share for our audience?
Sure. So I would be remiss. I wrote a book. It's called Navigating the Cybersecurity Career Path. Feel free to check it out. I like listening to podcasts. There is a lot happening there that you can, plug in while you're driving to and from work or walking the dog or wherever you've got sort of time with headphones on at the gym. that can be really useful in terms of, again, getting a broad perspective about what's going on in the industry, as well as a little bit of historical perspective as well. Sometimes we think we're dealing with these issues and it's brand new. And most of the time I find actually these issues have been around for a really long time, and it helps to remember that every once in a while.
Yeah, that's great. It's always a good question that I like to ask people is there's a lot of things that stay the same, but things are also evolving. So definitely we'll be sharing those links in the blog post. So please do check them out. And Helen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
For the audience, thanks for watching. Don't forget to tune in to the full audio version of our interview with Helen, where we cover much more. And be sure to sign up to follow the series for more great stories from women in cybersecurity. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.